Piers Morgan is said to have sparked outrage by naming the two royals at the centre of this royal racist saga, as it has been so dubbed. But has he really? Has he really sparked outrage by naming names that were named in a book that was released to the public in the Dutch version of this book? Now, I can't quite see that. Are you, as a member of the British public, or public around the world for that matter, are you outraged by Piers Morgan naming the two royals in this book? Or is it just that he's speaking the truth since they've been named in the book and he's giving you his opinion that he thinks that these allegations, for what they are baseless and unparticularized, wholly unsubstantiated, and there is no way for you to know as a member of the public any truth in these allegations whatsoever? Now, Piers Morgan responded by saying that he's outraged too, but for a different reason. He says that he's outraged that the British media hasn't done the same and questions why British people should be barred from knowing what the Dutch people already know about our own royal family. Now, it gets better than that because, as I predicted in my previous video, I said that there must have been names named either in the manuscript or in notes or something else for them to have ended up in the Dutch translation of that book in the first place. Take a look at my video from yesterday. Somehow, two names appeared in the Dutch version of this book. This was initially put down to a translation error and then later chalked up as just a bit of an error. But as a lawyer, I frankly do not accept either of these excuses. A name is highly unlikely, if not impossible, to appear in the translated version of a book if it didn't appear in the original, which Mr. Scobie insists it didn't. Likewise, it's not likely to be an error, unless of course the translators of the book had copies of notes to hand with those names in it, which again, it seems Mr. Scobie denies. But these names had to have originated from somewhere. They either originated from Mr. Scobie in either his notes or the original version of the book, or they've been created to be put into the translated version of the book somewhere in between. I would take great offense to that, and if they did that publicly, it would inherently damage someone's reputation, and you could quite rightly find yourself at the wrong end of a lawsuit because of that. Now, I say that I don't think it's by accident because, in my view, and I've seen many comments from you guys, I assume some of you guys watching this channel, but over on BlackBeltBarrister on the comments there, saying that you work as an editor, you work in book publishing and all these kind of things, and there is no way in some of the comments that I've read in their views that this could have made its way to a book past everybody else without it being the intention. And it just doesn't make sense. How can names end up in a book as a result of a mistranslation or an error or anything else other than they decided to put the names in there? It just doesn't make sense. And surprise, surprise, late last night and throughout today, it's been reported in the headlines that the Dutch translator who worked on Endgame to translate it into Dutch, she says that she was sent a manuscript with the names of two royals who were named in that book. Now, while Scobie has insisted that he never sent out a book that revealed the identity of these two royals, talking about Archie's skin colour, Saskia Peters, the translator, says that she simply used what was in front of her, which I believe is the precise words that I used when I was talking about this in my own videos and over on Popcorn Planet, that they would only translate what was in front of them. And she says the names of the royals were there in black and white. I did not add them, she told the Mail. I just did what I was paid to do, and that was to translate the book from English to Dutch. She added, this is reading from LBC News, that I've been translating for many years. This is the first time anything like this has happened. This is not something I wanted to be involved in. This has been upsetting. I do not want to talk about it much more. So she's been very clear that the names were there when she was asked to translate this book from English to Dutch, which, if you think about this logically, and the most simple explanation is usually the correct one. The names must have been written somewhere, either in the manuscript or in the notes or in anything else that accompanied the original material to be translated into Dutch. And she says that those names were there in black and white for her to translate. Scobie, appearing on BBC Newsnight, refused to apologise for the names coming out in the book, in the Dutch version, insists that he's not Meghan and Harry's friend, that he's never sat down with Meghan for a private interview or shared information, etc. But as many people have commented, there are only two people that were privy to the information contained within the letters exchanged between Meghan Markle and King Charles. And those were King Charles and Meghan Markle. They were the two that knew about the contents of those letters. And, of course, probably Harry and other members of the royal family. Now, the members of the royal family are unlikely to have leaked any of the content between those letters. I think that is quite obvious. And therefore, for the names to appear in the Dutch version of this book, written by Scobie, translated into Dutch, obviously somehow made their way into the Dutch version. So if there's any outrage here, despite what you see in the headlines, no criticism of the headlines. They do what they do, and they do it very well. But despite the headlines saying that Piers Morgan's the one that's sparking outrage by naming them, should it not be that the outrage is sparked by them being named in the book in the first place? And no criticism of the Dutch translator here, because it is highly unlikely that she made them up and made her own decision to insert them, and she insists that she just translated what was in front of her. I very much doubt that any translator is going to put themselves at the centre of this row, whereas it's the author of the book that is ultimately responsible for the contents of the book, any translations and publications thereafter, save, of course, for any contractual agreements between the author of the book and the editors and the publishers and the printers and so on. Now, I will double down on what I said yesterday and the opinion of our Alan Robertshaw, with many years' experience, to say that Piers Morgan is not likely to face any legal trouble here. Despite the fact that headlines say that he's sparked outrage, that all legal options are on the table, our view is that that is just not going to happen. If you want to hear more about our views, please do subscribe here. Subscribe to my other channel, Black Belt Secrets, linked below, which I share my personal views on these kind of things. Do also subscribe to Art of Law, which is Al's channel, where Al will share his views on the same things. Do subscribe to him as well. Let's get him over 10,000 subscribers, please. His content is fascinating. I'm honoured to have been able to help him start his channel. He enjoys sharing the content with you. Please pop over there and subscribe. And let's just all think a little bit sensibly about this situation. All of this started with Meghan and Harry's interview with Oprah Winfrey some years ago, and the publications they've done thereafter. And as to what happens next, whether there are any legal suits that follow, perhaps it will be Omid Scobie that is in fact at the centre of those considerations for legal actions by the royal family. But as I said yesterday, on balance, I think probably not. And as always, I will have the pleasure of coming along to update you on the most condensed version I possibly can. So thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing to each of our channels, and I will see you next time.